And they're off in Derby 1:38.
3, 2, 1.
And they're off. There they go. Nothing more exciting than the start of a race, right? After all, getting started is half the job. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Getting started is not half the job. Getting started is the easiest thing in the world. If getting started were half the job, I would be half done learning French and half done learning German and half done being a concert pianist. I've started lots of things, but I don't finish. You see, starting's not the trick. Finishing is the trick. And I have to confess, as I was sitting here writing the grammar for you guys on the participles, I thought, oh no, these guys are going to give up. They're going to give up because this is so overwhelming right now. Everything is coming at them. I'll bet they feel like overwhelmed. And I want to encourage you to just keep on running. Remember how fresh you felt when you came out of that starting gate, and then you got tired when we got into the substantives, then we added the verbals, and you started feeling a little oogie about everything. Well, we're almost there. We're almost there. So look at that finish line and keep on running. After all, it's the finishing that matters.
I'll have another, takes the lead in the Derby, and up the line, I'll have another, wins the Derby, a first winning ride.
Trying to catch up. Here is Madison in front, Jenner on the outside, those two to the line together. It will be Jenner to win it.
And here he comes out of turn number 4. Dixon with Elio and Briscoe. Who's going to win the race?
Yes, it's the finishing that matters, which is why I have always loved the Apostle Paul's statement at the end of his life. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. It's the finishing that counts. So let's finish strong here with these aorist and perfect participles. Now let me remind you, all we're doing is we're looking at the tense and voice, case, number, and gender of the participles. Tense. How will I know that I'm looking at an aorist participle? Now hopefully you're like, I already know the answer to this. Aorist, sigma alpha. That's our big clue, right? In the active and middle. And then in the passive, it's theta eta. Well, with the participle, it's theta epsilon, not theta eta. Think of it as a de-augmented form, if you like. But sigma alphas and theta etas, just like always. Or, if it's a second aorist, what do we look for? Stem change, right. So same thing with the participles. Now we won't have the augment because remember the augment has to do with time and the participles focus is on the aspect. But the clues that we've learned for the aorist remain true for the participle. Voice. How will I identify the voice of the participle? Well, we've seen that the participle morphemes give us this information, and in fact the aorist and actually the present and the perfect, they're all similar here. The active voice always has nu tau. So one of the clues that you're looking at an active voice participle is the nu tau. Now that's in the masculine and neuter. The feminine forms are a little different, so it's nu tau or sa sa. Remember in the present it was usa, and in the aorist here, sa sa. Well, that makes sense. Sigma alpha. Sigma alpha, sigma alpha. Okay, aorist, aorist, aorist. Okay, feminine. Okay, so that would be for the active voice. For the middle voice, well, that's easy. Men. Remember, men in the middle. You see a men in a participle, it's a middle aorist participle. Now, in the present and in the perfect, remember that the middle and the passive share the same form, but the aorist has a unique form for the passive. And remember the clue is theta epsilon. So if you see men, it's a true middle. That's an aorist middle. But if you see theta epsilon, it's an aorist passive. So just briefly to review that. Okay, it's not as hard as I just made it sound. Active, nu tau or sa sa. Middle, men. Passive, theta epsilon. Why couldn't I have just said that, right? All right, on to the case, number, and gender. We know the tense and voice. How do we know the case, number, and gender? Well, it's just the same as what we've always have been learning all along here. The participles follow either a 3-1-3 or a 2-1-2 pattern of declension, because remember, they are verbal adjectives. All right, in the active, the participle will follow a 3-1-3 pattern. Actually, that's always true. It's true in the aorist active. It's true in all of the forms. That's the 313 is the active form of the aorist participle. So in the middle, what would you expect? 212. Because it's the participle morpheme is min, and so it's going to be samina, samine, samina, but a 212 look just like the article to you, the pattern there. And then in the aorist passive, this is the one that's a little strange. It follows the 313 as well, because the participle theta epsilon has a thent. And we've seen this before. It's just one of the odd things. The aorist passive uses active endings. So don't ask me why, but it just does. Okay. But anyway, so the aorist passive follows a 313 pattern of declension. Okay, so to summarize that, I'm making it sound way too hard. It's not that hard. In the active, the aorist active participle, 313 pattern. And the morphemes will be sant or sasa or sant. In the middle, they will have a min in there, and it will look like samina, samine, samina. Okay, and then in the passive, it will look like theta epsilon. Thent, thesa, and thent will be the forms that you'll see.
So here it is, the glorious sea of aorist participles. Okay, now the first row here is the first aorist participles, and they're not too tough to recognize. It's just all the stuff I've been talking about. Notice we have sigma alphas to tell us we're looking at aorists in the active and middle, theta epsilon in the passive, and we have nu tau and sasa or sase to show us that we have active voice. We have min for the middle, and again the theta epsilon for the passive. And then the second aorist participle looks actually just like the present participle with one difference, and that of course is the stem change. Instead of two lambdas there, ball, we have just the one. So otherwise it looks just like a present participle, but it's that stem change that always tips off the second aorist. Now the second aorist passive is not that important, but we've seen this, that sometimes there are aorists that don't have the theta in the passive. Those are called second aorist passives. No big deal. You just get epsilon instead of theta epsilon, but don't worry too much about that one. Zooming in a bit tighter here on the first aorist participle, let me start by just telling you what all these words mean. Remember, they don't mean much. We have all of these forms because the Greek participle has case, number, and gender. That's why we have all these forms. But in English, this entire box in the active participle just means loosing. Now, in English, we don't know whether that's undefined or whether it's continuous. We don't have that distinction. But in Greek, if it's an aorist participle, we're talking about an undefined action because it's aorist, right? In the middle, it would be loosing for self, right? That self-interest nuance. And again, it would be undefined aspect. And then the aorist passive, this entire box could be translated by being loosed. And once again, that's exactly the same translation as the present passive. And okay, well, we just don't have a word in English or a way to distinguish between undefined and continuous aspect. So Greek is being a little more specific here than English is. Okay, so that's the meaning of these words. Now let's look at how they're formed. Okay, so the the aorist active participle here uses the nu tau, sasa, and nu tau. And we're kind of getting used to nu tau being an active clue and sasa here, okay? So see the nu taus. Now once again we have this sort of strange thing in the nominative singular masculine. There's no nu tau there. The ending is regular though, so you can see that the endings actually are just like our good old friend pos, right? Which we've come to know and love so well, right? Third declension, sigma, omicron, sigma, e, a, s, on, c, just exactly the same there, right? And then the feminine follows first declension. So if you look at the endings, you'll see they match up exactly. And then the neuter follows third declension again. And again, if you'll just compare the endings with pos, you can see, okay, making this point, it's a 313 adjective. All right, in the middle, once again, we have our old friend men. So we got the men in the middle there. So we have sigma alpha, we have men. It couldn't be more clear. Aorist middle participle. We know it can't be passive because there's a separate form for the aorist passive, right? So it's an aorist middle participle. And it follows that nice 2-1-2 pattern that our old friend the article followed, right? So we see, except for the nominative singular masculine, the endings are almost exactly alike. So 2-1-2 pattern for the middle. And then for the passive, we have our theta epsilon, and then thesa for our feminine participle morpheme here. So you see it ends in an alpha. So hence since it ends in a vowel, it follows first declension here. So once again, we're looking at something similar to pos. Sigma, os, e, a, s, on, si, os. So, okay. Wow. So, same old pattern, same old thing. So, okay. How do we know tense, voice, mood, case number, gender? Easy as pie, right? Tense will be seen with the sigma alpha or the theta epsilon. The voice will be the participle morphemes. We'll give it away. Case number and gender by the endings that we've already learned. So that's how you parse a participle. Looking at the second aorist participles, you'll notice that they are exactly like the present participles with the exception again of the stem change. That's what a second aorist is. So balo normally has 2 lambdas, here just 1. And so notice our active clue is nu tau, usa nu tau, just like in the present. Our middle forms have men there, mena, mene, mena. And they follow here in the passive. This, well, it's the 3-1-3, but just notice that sometimes the passive is missing the theta. That's all that means. So don't let the second aorist passive throw you off much. Grapho happens to be one of them. There aren't that many. But okay, so as far as parsing them goes, the 3-1-3 pattern, do I even need to drag our old friend pos over here again to show you? It's a 3-1-3 pattern. And then in the middle, of course, the 2-1-2 pattern. So our old friend the article can demonstrate that, which we know all too well. So second aorist participles, not very hard to recognize. Here is an example of a participle being used adjectivally. So here it is. You see that, and it's multicolored. Easy to spot in my text since I do that for you. But okay, it's from laleo. And notice that the connecting vowel in these contract verbs lengthens before the ending. So lalesas. So what do we see here? We see the sigma alpha, don't we? And then we see this nominative singular masculine ending. And the nominative singular masculine is easy because we have the article. So if you have the article before the participle, no need to miss the case number and gender, because even if you don't remember that that's the third declension nominative singular masculine and all, at least you can use the article to, quote, cheat. It's not really cheating. The article is there to help you. So, right? So, su, a, ha, aner, you are the man. Ha la lesas, speaking. Pros, tain. Gunaika, with the woman. You are the man speaking with the woman. And notice we've seen this before. Article, substantive, article, modifier. But in this case, the modifier is the participle. And the participle stands at the head of a participial phrase, the man speaking with the woman. So that whole thing, this whole underlined section here, gives us more information about the man. Which man? The man speaking with the woman. Here is an example of a substantival use of the aorist participle. Okay, ha pistiusas kai baptistes so thesetai. Now, hopefully you remember theta eta sigma is our future passive, and then we have this middle passive ending, atai, he will be saved. So, ha pistiusas, the believing, and the baptized. Okay, now how do we recognize these as aorists? Well, this is from pistuo, right? And so here's our sigma alpha, and then there's our nominative singular masculine ending in the third declension. But again, if you got confused, the article is there to help you. Nominative singular masculine article, then it's automatically a nominative singular masculine participle. So the believing one and here's an interesting one because here's our theta epsilon, right? So this isn't baptizing, but baptized. It's happening to you here. And because it's aorist, we won't say being baptized because that has sort of an ongoing aspect. So let's just call it baptized. The believing and baptized will be saved. Or to smooth that out, and this is perfectly legitimate translation here, the one who believed and is baptized will be saved. And finally, let's look at the adverbial use of the aorist participle. Okay, so elphantes, eis tein oikion, edon, ta, paidion. Coming into the house, they saw the child. Edon is from horao. It's that weird second aorist, and there's our third person plural ending there. They saw the child. Okay, so elphantes. What's that from? Erchomai, right? Okay, and so this is a second aorist, right? Because we've had a stem change. It's active. Here's our new tau. Notice there's no sigma alpha. It's an aorist, but there's no sigma alpha because it's a second aorist. And so it looks just like a present. And here, what is this ending right here? Nominative plural masculine. That's why we know this is they, because this is plural. They are coming into the house. They saw the child. Remember that this ending could also be first person singular. It's not I saw the child because the participle here tells us that it's a plural subject. In the third declension, that is the nominative plural ending. Just to remind you of that, those third declension endings are important mainly because of participles, because they just pop up everywhere, okay? So coming into the house, they saw the child. To the wild, John 1. Let's read a little Greek here. Epon un auto. They said, therefore, to him. Epon from lego. Remember that second aorist, very common. So they said, therefore, to him, tis a. Who are you? Tis, hopefully you recognize that as the interrogative pronoun. Take a look at that. That's that 3-3. Take a look at that in your master chart. So, who are you? Hina apocrisine domen. In order that answer we may give. See the hina? You know that there's a subjunctive coming. See the fat connecting vowel? This is from didomi. So, in order that answer we might give, and here we go for our participle. Tois pimpsasin hemas. To the ones sending us. So this is substantival here, right? To those who sent us is really the smoothest way to translate that, but to the ones sending us is maybe the most literal translation. Where's the sigma alpha? Kind of gave it away there with my cursor, didn't I? Okay, hidden in the psi. So this is an aorist. And what's this ending? Case number and gender of seen. That's the dative plural masculine. But if you didn't recognize that ending, you have a clue. Never miss the case number and gender when you have the article, right? Because there it is. Dative plural masculine. Matching, of course. Dative plural masculine here. Referring back to the ones who sent them, which is probably in this case, of course, the Jerusalem authorities. The next aorist participle is down in verse 33, and actually it's the same word from pimpo. Kago, remember that's and I, uk, edain, auton. Don't let edain throw you here. It's actually pluperfect. Don't worry about it, okay? And I was not knowing him. All but ha pimpsas me baptidzain in hudati akenas. Remember that one? That's that far demonstrative pronoun. Moi, apon, the one who sent me. That one said, okay. Now, please notice how important pronouns are. I mean, I know I've already made this point, but man, is life hard if you don't know your pronouns. It's worth going back and getting used to that sea of orange. That's why we spent so much time on those. Okay, back to participles. The one who sent me. Clearly, this is acting as the subject of the sentence, and it's substantival. Ha pimsas me. Where is the sigma alpha? Well, too easy, right? And here's our nominative singular masculine ending, but once again, don't miss the case, number, and gender when you have the article. Nominative singular masculine. So this would be an aorist active participle, nominative singular masculine. The one who sent me to baptize. Baptizein. What mood? Well, not really a mood. That's an infinitive, right? Remember ein? When we have the ein or we end in the sa, we are looking infinitive. All right. The next one is down in verse 36. So in verse 35, we have John and 2 disciples, and they're out standing out by the river. And here we are in 36. Kai emblepsas to Jesu peripatunti lege ide ha amnas tu theou. Behold the Lamb of God. So, okay, what's going on with this participle? Emblempsas is from emblepo, which is an interesting word. It means more than seeing. It means like looking intently. They're really checking Jesus out here, okay? So how do we get from emblepo to emblepsas? Well, what happened? Well, here's our sigma alpha, and here's our nominative singular masculine ending. Now notice, do we have an article? No article, right? So this is in fact an adverbial participle. Seeing Jesus, walking about, he says. So here's our verb. Okay, he says this, seeing Jesus walking about. Okay, so these two participles describe the little bit more about his talking and when he talks and why he's talking. So you might notice there's a participle here that I didn't highlight. I didn't highlight it because it's not an aorist participle. It is a present participle, right? Peripateo. Notice there's no sigma alpha. There's no stem change. That's a present active participle, dative singular masculine, which matches the article here. But okay, emblempsas is adverbial. This would be an example of an aorist active participle, nominative singular masculine. It's to match the subject here, the one doing the saying, which in this case is John, which is why it's nominative singular masculine. Now down to verse 38. Okay, so strapheste ha Jesus kai theasamenos autus akaluthuntas lege autois. That's a long preamble right here, isn't it? Jesus turning and seeing them following, he says to them, okay, so look at all these participles. Now, why didn't I highlight this participle again? Akalutheo, because it's a present participle, right? Akalutheo, there's our nice stem. It hasn't changed. It's a present active participle, and it's accusative plural masculine. You can see, whoops, we don't need to do that. You can see the ending here matches the ending here, accusative plural masculine. Okay, but that's the present participle. On to the aorist here. Strophes. Now that's a weird one. Remember I said that the second aorist passive participle is rare? Well, wouldn't you know, here's one of them. No theta epsilon, just epsilon. So, sorry about that, but that is a second aorist passive participle. And again, all that means is it's missing the theta. So turning, or, I guess if you want to be really literal, being turned, Jesus being turned and seeing theasamenos. Okay, do you see the aorist clue there? Sigma alpha. And it's middle, not middle passive, because the passive, remember, has a separate form in the aorist. So it's middle. So it's an aorist middle participle. And what does this ending look like? Nominative singular masculine. So now, why is this one translated actively? Well, because this is from theaamai. It's deponent. Okay, so if it's deponent in the indicative, it's a deponent participle too. So this is a deponent participle, but this one's not. This is from strepho, and it's not deponent, and it's just a figure of speech. You know, Jesus being turned and seeing them, following, says to them, okay, what are you looking for? Okay, what do you seek? 3 more participles in John 1, and we got it wrapped up here. Okay, verse 40 is kind of a parenthetical statement here, but now it was Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, one of the 2 of the ones hearing from John and following him. Okay, it's a little hard to follow the logic there, but okay, but just look at the participles here. Heis, 1, ek, ton, dua, one of the 2, ton, akusanton. Of those hearing, para Ioannou from John, kai, akaluthesanton, auto, following him. Okay, so this is Andrew. He's the brother of Simon Peter, and he's one of the 2 of those who heard from John and followed him. Okay, it's kind of a convoluted sentence here, but notice this. Okay, one of the 2 of the ones hearing. Let's look at that participle. Akusanton is from akuo. You can see the aorist clue, sigma alpha. You see the active clue right there. You see the case number and gender right there. Okay? And you also get a clue for case number and gender because you have the article. So this would be an aorist, active participle, genitive, plural, masculine. So he's one of the 2 from John, hearing from John, and this is from akalutheo. Okay, becomes akaluthesanton. Notice that the akulatheo, this contract vowel, lengthens before the ending. Getting kind of used to that. Akulathesanton. It's exactly the same ending, isn't it? Santon. So this too is an aorist, active, participle, genitive, plural, masculine. He was one of the 2 hearing from John and following him.
On the left-hand side of your screen, that's where it's at. Cavendish has made his way through. Oh, he's done it. Cavendish has done it. He's going to be the world champion. Oh, it's yes. Mark Cavendish is the world champion.
So let's finish strong here. Let's fight our way through. And I know it's a lot of information, and it still is just too much, a little overwhelming. Finish up this video, then go look at the grammar. Read through this information. Just let it have a second chance to seep in. Then go to the workbook and practice some of this and test your brain a little bit. Then take the online quiz. And then look at John 1. I think you'll enjoy this. Just look at the participles in John 1. See if you can see the patterns, see the things that are going on. Because remember, I know it sounds so overwhelming, but again, we're just looking for the tense and voice, case number and gender. It's stuff we've already done. Our challenge is that it's all crashing together in this one glorious word, the participle.